Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy. Won't you please hire us? We're pretty cool. And welcome to Tuesday Office Hours Ask Us Anything today. Hello, I-10. It's a special adventure today because we do have the three musketeers, but they're not necessarily the three you're expecting. We do have Dr. Nick with us today, but in place of Darren, and Darren's not replaceable, we do have the super awesome Sophie Fryermuth, who I hope I've spelled correctly. We'll take a look when we bring her on the screen. And I'll fix it if I've messed it up because, hey, it's about iterating. And of course, special thanks to all of the low ego action heroes who are financially donating to the channel, which is completely optional, but always appreciated. And of course, you can do that on YouTube by pressing the join button and give between $3 and $10 a month, which I normally spend on my streaming software and chocolate chips. So hello, Manuel and Janice. Good to see everybody joining up for today. And we do have 10 questions, I think, already. We are up to the eyeballs in questions. But if you want to ask a question, you can put it in the chat room, or you can send it anonymously at deltacx.link/ask. So with that, I will bring in our guests and check Sophie's spelling and have everybody introduce themselves. And Sophie, did I spell you correctly? I did it.
Perfect.
I get
Spot
to keep
on.
working here. All right, super.
Absolutely.
So, great. So let's have Sophie start by introducing herself. Who the heck are you and how do we find you?
Hey, Debbie, I have no idea who I am and where you find me, but I know what I do. I do help companies and teams get good products out of people's heads and into the hands of users. I blend UX, information architecture, service design, user research, and anything I can get my hands on to make awesome products. And you can find me with that name. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter under @WickedGeeky. And yeah, and I'm here tonight with you, which is great. Thanks
Yes,
for having me.
thank you so much. Certainly not the last time. Dr. Nick, tell us of you.
First of all, you should definitely follow Wicked Geeky on Twitter. Sophie's tweets are awesome. She tweets frequently and she doesn't hold back, and that's my kind of person. So I would highly recommend that. Hi, I'm Dr. Nick. You guys know me as the loud one on LinkedIn. I've been banned from LinkedIn. Somebody has grasped me up or reported me. I'm banned. My account is restricted. I've had to send my passport in. The UX of that is completely broken. The whole thing is a complete joke. I think I'm being played. I don't know what's going on. I know when I've been a bad boy, and I haven't been a bad boy. So we'll see what happens. I'm a user researcher. I'm a practitioner. I'm currently
I-10
working.
says, I have an idea of who it might be.
Yeah, me too. Of course, I do. It's that guy, that dude with the double barrel surname that we had all the trouble with 2 weeks ago. He reported me for bullying and harassment. But anyone who reads that thread, and I've contested it, anybody that reads the thread, like an editor or whatever have you at Microsoft or LinkedIn, they'll see, he starts it. He was very, very rude. I was polite and then very rude in return, but nothing unprofessional. So, it was just a bit of bickering. So anyway, part of the old echo chamber, positive bias BS that we all live under. Sorry, that's me, user researcher practitioner. I I do the real transformation. That's what I do.
And what is it? The real
transformation. Real transformation is user centricity.
Thank you.
It's why product people are trying to kidnap UX, and they're reinventing the wheel as a square, just like the designers did. We're watching it happen all over again. One great big tragedy of UX theft.
David Snodgrass says, it's pretty boss you got kicked off LinkedIn, Dr. Nick. I don't know if Dr. Nick feels that way, but hopefully yes, the gun show. Look out.
Here's my arrest certificate as well, if you want to, if you care.
Arrest?
You've printed.
Sophie, it happened on. I'll have to tell you that off camera. It's another time, but yeah, it happened on business.
Happened what?
Unbelievable.
It was one of my finest hours where I was kind of arrested on work business.
Okay, and thank you, Janice, for becoming a member of not the Low Ego Action Heroes. Thank you so much. That's very beautiful of you. Hence the emoji explosion. But holy cats, I'm going to jump right into our first question, which interestingly enough isn't a question. The person who sent it in just wants to warn everybody about a poor experience they had, and they're hoping to protect others. So I'm just going to read it out, and of course, it's a long story, but we can comment on it if we'd like. But I don't think there's a question here. Hi, Debbie. I would like to share some inside knowledge about a company called Askable. Askable.com. They have a service called Askable Plus. It sounded like the perfect opportunity to get a side gig and make some extra money by working on the weekend and after hours. It turned out to be a huge mistake. I just completed my first and last project I will ever do for Askable Plus. It was pitched as a simple prototype validation, but right from the client briefing call, I knew it was so much more complicated. There were multiple flows, so many things to test. I pushed back at the number of hours, but I didn't have any luck. I thought to myself, okay, let me keep going. It may get better. No, it only went downhill. The Askable team is very pushy. They keep chasing you. They know you have a day job, but that doesn't stop them. I was also told that I will not be paid if I don't deliver things by certain dates. It was so stressful and downright disrespectful. I have learned my lesson. I will not be doing any more projects for them. So I didn't look into this, but I know Askable is a research tool for Australia and New Zealand. That I already knew. I did not know they were doing some sort of like, oh, thank you, Bruna. I did not know they were doing some sort of, yes, thank you, Bruna. I didn't know they were doing some sort of like freelancy outsourced researcher thing. Have either of you heard about this?
No, I'm
No, but
confused if
that
it's, yeah.
go on,
Yeah,
Sophie.
so
Sorry.
again, we don't really know about this, but we believe the person who has written in. It is one of the low ego action heroes, and someone I know from the our Slack workspace. If you're not part of our Slack workspace, please join deltacx.com/links. It's completely free. And someone who's been in the audience of the show many times. So I would just say someone I believe.
Can I just say though that one of the things that really bothers me about that's something that we've all spoken about before a lot. That's kind of filed under junior abuse, or words to that effect.
Darren
Um,
says hi. He's
Everybody wants
watching.
portfolio. Oh, Darren, hey dude,
Hi,
everyone's
Emmanuel.
salute the captain. Um,
Hey, Darren.
I wish you were here, buddy, but Sophie's also a lovely person. I just dig myself
Love
in everything I
triangle.
say.
Love
The point
triangle.
is it's a love square. Anyway, the
That's
point is that people want portfolio material. That's what that's your user need. I need experience. I need to evidence that in my portfolio. And these companies know that, and they can get some extra work done, and they are basically taking the piss,
I think this
either
person is
intentionally
mid-level or
or
senior, by the
unintentionally.
way.
Oh,
Oh, so
apologies.
yeah.
Go on, Soph. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it sounded like like a contracting or freelancing job with horrible framing of it, but also the fact that you get paid on deliverables. Like we are not.
Right.
We don't build walls and you count the walls. Like what comes out of our brain needs to be evidence. Like we need to put things out of brain and onto paper. But you can't start by saying you will be paid $200 a deliverable, a wireframe. So sure got 5 wireframes, because sometimes you look at it and it's actually this thing needs 10 wireframes or this thing needs only 3. So we never, this is why scoping UX work is really a bit of a dark art, but in any case, you engage us on the promise that we can deliver brain power, and I think any employment contract that is not on a per hour or per day basis and in which you show up and you do stuff.
Day
Yeah,
rates.
you've got day rates, exactly. This is why we're engaged on days and absolutely not on deliverables or outputs or even worse outcomes. You get paid when there's 100,000 users. Good luck.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a bit of and unfortunately there will always be people who like I can do this and I need the money and it's right there and it's solving another problem. And this is it's abuse.
Yep. So everybody be
Sometimes
careful about Askable. Oh, sorry. We have a million questions, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll be really quick. Sometimes it's unintentional. I got stung myself quite badly recently over Christmas. I did a lot of work. It was an international thing, and one of the things I had discounted or not, that the time it takes to analyze video when you've got accent and tonality, it it doubles or quadruples what
Demonstrate.
was already two or
Yeah.
three times multiplier, and that was
Yeah,
my
3 to
failing. I've learned that
5x.
huge. Yeah, I mean, if you put a times 5 multiplier on regular research, you can put a times 8 or times 10 on foreign language stuff or not English as a mother tongue type stuff. I learned that the hard
Very
way.
much true.
And you can't charge the client all that additional time. It was kind of somewhere between brief and scope and me, and that's what Sophie means by dark art, because you just got to
Yeah.
keep learning. And I learned the hard way on that one.
Yep. All right. Well, hopefully people are warned away from whatever Askable.com is trying to get researchers to do as a side gig. Our next question says, how do you usually assess whether you're ready to move to a more senior role from a junior level? Do you have any recommendation on evaluating your skill set? Who wants to jump on that first? Sophie?
I can absolutely.
Thanks.
Um, the move from junior to midweight is a move in multiple dimensions. There is first a dimension of the domains that you're working in. And you could be expanding into other domains. So for example, you've had a first experience working for um, I don't know, a company that does healthcare, and then you move into another company that does education, and you're still junior, but you start learning that, you start maybe researching with smaller, younger children, K-12, because it's education. And then you can move into energy and so on. So there's this kind of very lateral where you understand how the different tasks we do, particularly the user research, changes with the audiences we have, and the product design changes with the requirements of the industry. But then there's also the vertical, and the vertical is like you start doing more tasks with more impact, bigger projects, bigger audiences. It starts going international. So when are you ready to move to a more senior role from a junior level? This one is very much a competence level. You can do all the things you're asked at your level very well, very quickly, very reliably. And you can see it may be a bit boring, you're a bit comfortable, you're not really stretched by the domain or by the tasks. And then you need to ask for meatier, more complex things. Be careful, however, to jump too far too out, because you don't know what you don't know. And the fact that you know how to do wireframes for this very product, and that you're extremely well briefed by a really good product manager and you're very well managed by a very good project manager, may put a lot of the work that supports you as completely invisible. And if these conditions are not there, you will feel the pain. So go cautiously, my friend.
Great. Nick?
That's great advice. To add to that, for me, it's about confidence, and that's true confidence, kind of externally validated confidence, as well as your own feeling of confidence. But that confidence you get comes from kind of two distinct work streams in your brain or in your career. The what of UX, your practitioner stuff, your skills, your research, your design, all of that stuff. But then there's the how of UX and the process and adapting to process and stakeholder management or stakeholder whispering, being able to do what you do in a different environment, a different sector, a different vertical, like Sophie's saying, that in my mind.
Oop, sorry. I hit the wrong button.
Oh, something just went dark. Yeah. Oh, cool,
I
cool.
I
Who
accidentally
turned
put
the
up
lights
the
down?
question. I put up the question
Fade
again
to
as a
black.
lone thing and it killed the sound. Sorry, please continue.
But yeah, no. So it's really the confidence coming from the what of UX or the how of UX, and the how I find myself. The what of UX you get down, and I mean, I'm always learning user research. I don't do design so much anymore. The point is, you're always learning as a continued professional development. But I think the deeper, real, practical, hands-on, the good stuff that really you use is that the how you do UX. How do you convince people? When do you go renegade? When is it okay to be a bad boy and when is it not okay to be a bad boy? There are different times, and I've got a pretty good idea about it, but I get it wrong still. I mean, hey, but that's my answer is confidence. But like I say, not just your own feeling; it should be your confidence around others.
And I think if you're a junior, hopefully you're working with midweights and seniors and maybe a head of UX or director. And these are the people that you should ask to help you move up. And if they don't let you move, then you should really explain to you why. Um, because, hopefully you're learning from good people, and they can help you expand your skills. And if they're not placing you in the projects or with the tasks that you need to grow your skill set, then that's a little bit on them. But then you need to know that you may not be quite ready. There's quite a big gap between junior and midweight, to be honest, and there's an even gap between midweight and senior. Like they're long ranging roles. Don't shy away of being 2-3 years at junior level before feeling the pain of being a midweight, and then you can comfortably stay again 3-4 years at midweights, because at senior, the responsibility on your shoulders are very significant, and you will be blamed for failure of the project, and rightly so.
Yeah, good points. And Darren is saying minimum of 7 years, not the 2 to 3 we're seeing today. I don't know if Darren means 7 for senior or 7 for mid. 7 for midweight seems a little bit a bit
It's a bit
much, but
long,
I
yeah.
know I say senior is 5 to 6 or more. Some people call for 7, but I definitely don't
Yeah.
believe in the 2 year senior. Nick, something to add?
Yeah, very quick question. I think if Sophie and Debbie agree, I think a really great interview question to ask for juniors and mids in particular is to ask about this at interview. Is to say, what is in your studio, in your department, your team, what is the progression? Because a lot of places will say, yeah, we've got juniors and mids and seniors, but actually what you're hearing from Sophie is that design progression, junior, mid, senior. Is it formalized? Is there mentorship? Is it recognized, or do I just move job and I get a new senior title, which is what people do? Doesn't give
Yeah.
you the experience, it gives you the label. As Sophie is saying, it puts a shed load of pressure on you that you don't need, and stress and mental health if you're not ready for it.
Yeah, and
and
the other
and
thing
there's
that oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, I once heard juniors, somebody said to me, "Oh, I'm a senior because I do workshops."
Oh
And I'm
shit.
like, yeah, exactly. But
Oh,
that
that
was,
gets
I
this.
don't blame them. I blame the organization that gave them the senior title, because, oh, you run workshops, you're now a senior.
Yeah, but
Um,
senior
a
senior role is easy to give in a review,
in a
whereas money is
in
much
bad
harder.
organization.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
correct.
facilitation has nothing to do with UX. It's a different skill set, but it's another skill set you need at senior level, because you will be facilitating a lot of conversations.
Right. Yeah, and the only other thing that I would add there is just sorry it somewhat blocks Sophie, but my phases of proficiency model, you are moving up this triangle. Sorry there, Sophie. You just want to keep improving it in addition to what everybody said, because it's hard to follow
Thank you.
that. You're moving up your science and technique, so continue learning more science and technique, and work your way up into being more strategic at the project level, which I usually don't expect from mid-level people. I tend to expect more from seniors, but I think as you become more mid-level, you'll start to understand which tasks we're doing and why and how long they'll take. Whereas I expect juniors to really have no idea how to plan a project or what we're going to do and how long
Yes.
it's going to take. So
And
that's
it's
something I
such a
look for.
such a happy place. Stay in the happy place of, you don't have those massive business problems to solve.
But do
Yeah.
you know what? A lot of people don't have the, like Debbie is always making a big deal of accountability, and I so agree. There isn't accountability in digital to any meaningful way, and
Yeah.
so in government and the stuff, sort of stuff that we do, Sophie, yeah, there's tons of accountability because it's government. But in the private sector, the senior doesn't have their neck on the line. You know what I mean? No one is
This will
challenging your
change.
analysis.
I think this is going to change. I think when we're going to start seeing software kill people,
Great. I mean, not
and
great, but
necks are on
doable.
the
Yeah.
line. So
Hmm.
software as medical devices is well framed by a lot of regulations, but look at cars, look at, you know um, IoT. Like, at some point, people should be very afraid that they will be going to prison because, data was leaked, a user was hurt or killed, or mentally traumatized. Like, the law will catch up with stupid. So don't think that we are immune because I'm just doing a wireframe. It's not my fault. They killed the button. They clicked the button. It will be.
My Honda, my Honda car, the power button, which obviously is an electric car,
Yeah.
on is red.
Ugh.
I still can't get my head around it after owning it for 2 years.
I'm going to have to move to the
I
next
just, yeah,
question because we're
let's do
20
that.
minutes into a 2 hour show and we've answered two
You knew
questions.
what you were going to
So,
get with
well,
us,
look, we
Debbie.
have this
Come
with
on.
Darren too. Look, we know it's the 12-inch dance mix, long answers of things. That's why I always have the lightning to remind everybody for lightning answers. And people who are sending in anonymous questions, I'm catching them. I'm putting them at the end of the list, but you are far away from getting your answer, but we'll get to you. This one says, if I'm trying to find my first job as a UX designer and I've only done small university projects and no commercial work so far, do you think it's okay to write I'm a UX designer on my website homepage or resume or LinkedIn, or is that kind of misleading? Would writing I'm an aspiring UX designer be better, or would it feel like I'm not confident enough to get that job? All right, aspiring or being? Nick? And hi, Elliot.
Oh man, I'll be quick. I'll be quick because there's kind of the answer I should give and the answer that I want to give. Um,
We have time for both.
okay, no, I'll go quickly. Look, I think technically speaking, you're not a UX designer yet because you don't have commercial experience. I think that's fair to say. However, the world that we're in today in 2022, people say I'm a UX designer or all of this stuff all the time. Fake it till you make it. Now, if you're my brother, friend, son, daughter, sister type thing, I'd probably say go ahead and put you're a UX designer because everybody else is. Why should you lose out? Um, but there's probably a better way of doing this. Um, I think if I'm looking for you to acquire talent, I'm looking for just the right attitude, the right person. I can make somebody into the right UXer as long as they've got the right attitude. And that's what I'm not looking for a ton of experience at a junior role. You know what I'm saying? I'm not looking for a portfolio. Even at mid, I'm not looking for anything too major, really. I'm just looking to see what you've learned so far. Um, I would say putting something like aspiring user-centric practitioner or something more friendly that would do it for me, looking for work or looking for experience in a user-centric entity or that kind of a thing. That would appeal to me because it's plain English. You're not spinning anything. And then when I look at you on LinkedIn, I'm going to realize this person is just telling it like it is. And I know I'm in the minority, but I have nothing but respect for people like that instead of people who want to spin it and shine it and, make it look better than things
Well,
actually are.
at least they're
I
not
would
saying
hire you.
I'm a thought leader. Sophie,
Yeah.
what's your take here?
I am actually in disagreement because I look at it in the way that the minute you get a job, you will be a UX designer, junior level, entry level, but you will be one. And we know CVs are used by people and by machines to find candidates. If I want a plumber, I don't look at trainee fresh out of plumbing school. I look for plumber. And then I see if they have the relevant experience. So to get yourself a chance to get a job, you need to you need to label yourself for the job you want, not the job you have. So this is why the self-titles on CVs are they're aspiring. If you want to be a senior plumber and then you put a senior plumber to get identified by recruiters and bots and employers looking for a senior plumber. So put the title that you want to get and make sure that you don't oversell yourself and that it's really clear in your profile that you are you are a recently trained and you need an entry level role.
See you later, D.
See you later, Darren. Thanks for dropping by. Yeah, two
Right,
great
Aaron?
perspectives. The I would add even a third perspective, which is if you're just looking to create a headline for yourself, like on LinkedIn or something like that, and if you're nervous about do I say I'm a UX designer or not, you can always turn it around and say something like looking for my first UX design job or ready for my first UX design job or something like that. And that way you've got your keywords, but you're not, necessarily claiming to be anything. But I will tell you, I look at many portfolios, as many of you know, and I'm at the point where when somebody who graduated a boot camp yesterday writes on their portfolio, I'm a UX designer or I'm a UX researcher, I got to admit, I kind of don't care. Like
Yeah.
I kind of don't care what you call yourself. You know, some of them say I'm a highly empathetic, user-driven, you know, corn-fed, grass-eating, whatever, and I just ignore it. And but what I do say to people when I review their portfolios is whatever you put on that homepage, I'm going to take as your promise to me. If you say I am innovative, I'm going to look for innovation in your case studies. And it's
Yeah.
probably not there. And if you say, I am research driven, I'm going to look for good research and it might not be there. So I say, look, you can write whatever you want, but I'm going to be looking for these things when I go through your portfolio case study. And I'm not too hassled if you call yourself a UX designer and you haven't had your first job yet. But if you call yourself a UX designer and all of your portfolio projects are web design, and I didn't speak to a single user, but I guessed at a thing, then I'm usually, as some of you who've received these portfolio reviews from me, I will usually say, I'm sorry, but I don't see this as UX design. I see this as web design. So I would say, don't get too caught up in these titles and these headlines. Create a great resume and portfolio that shows what you can do and what your strengths are. David says, personally, I don't mind aspiring UX designer, but I'd have questions for the grass eater. I10 says, I wrote psychology and cultural analysis graduate on my CV and LinkedIn because that's what I was before my first project. Right. Well, you got a master's degree.
Yeah, just remember that the power of bots and keywords are powerful,
Yeah.
and yeah, don't play the game or you
Yeah,
will lose.
get the keywords in there. UX design, UX
Right.
designer, etc. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Next, good luck to that person. Next question. Hello, Debbie. I've watched your micro lesson on task analysis personas with Larry, and I have a couple of questions. Okay, sorry, Larry's not here, but we'll do our best. How do you define the knowledge that a person, user, customer has to know but wouldn't? Do you just simplify and ask them in an interview? Larry said you can give them a scenario and ask them to walk through the scenario, but I guess this only works with an existing system. What if we're doing a generative research and don't know much about the domain yet? Hence, we can't know what knowledge people wouldn't have. Yikes. Okay. We got to find Larry. Hold on. I'm going to send Larry a quick Slack note to say make sure you start watching the show 27 minutes in today. Uh, please watch today's show starting 27 minutes in. People
So
have
why Debbie's
questions.
doing this, personas are a big thing of mine. And remember that personas are a summary of what you actually know. First of all, they're not a plug the gap and put something in all the boxes. So and identifying what a person needs to know to make the most out of your tool or your service or the domain is very important. And then estimating, do they actually know this thing, is also important. And you need to find that out, whatever way. You maybe it's desktop research, market research, interviews, surveys, but it's up to you to understand what is a necessary skill level, knowledge level for optimum use of my product, of my tool. Do they need to be, for example, very good with computers? Does it require an advanced digital literacy level? And you need to know that. Do they need to have two hands? Because they need one hand to do one thing and the other hand to do another thing. Like you need to know these things, and that's exactly what you'll there's a number of things you design for your users, and there's also a number of things you design that will exclude or not for users, and that's okay. That's the commercial world. But you need to know, or you need to know how to accommodate those people. So go and find out.
Nick, anything to add, or should I field this one since this is my
Yeah, I
turf?
mean,
Go
I
for it.
know what I would do in this situation, but because this is specifically related to content that Larry and you have produced, I don't want to just guess at something when there's a more informed answer, probably from Larry or from yourself. But I'm fully ready to bullshit it.
No extra charge. Did you want to add something before I jump on it?
No, go for it.
Okay, and yeah, Kayleen just wrote, doesn't the observation make the knowledge gap plain? It should if done correctly. So let's kind of take this question apart into its pieces. How do you define the knowledge that a person, user, or customer has to know but wouldn't? The observational research will tell you this if you plan it correctly, because you will ask people to walk through a task or set of tasks that they do now, and you will see where people you will notice, they might not notice, but you should notice where there's something that they think they understand but they don't, or they know they don't understand. An example that I give a lot is in research we did last year, where we told people, okay, you're going shopping on this website, you have $1,000 and you have to buy a quantity of 125 of these things. And people started doing the math. 1,000 divided by 125 is $8 each. Now, that, of course, was a tool. They all had to open up a calculator and do that. But the interesting part where the knowledge came in was one woman said, I don't have $8 an item. I probably have six, because you're going to charge me setup fees, tax, and shipping, and I don't have as much money as I think. And she was the only one who didn't end up over budget at the end, because she had the knowledge of how there were going to be extra surprise fees at the end. So I think when you've done some good research planning and you've got something you can observe, you should be able to notice where people don't have knowledge. Like, we had another woman, this was a same project. We had a place where it's like, enter your Pantone color. Now, anyone who knows Pantone colors knows that they are numbers. The woman typed navy. Now, we know what she means. We say bless her heart in the American South, but we know that she kind of doesn't know what a Pantone color is, because otherwise she would have put in a number. And so we should be able to see where there is a lack of knowledge. It's usually going to be in confusion and mistakes. Do you simply ask them in an interview? You can't ask people what they don't know. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. We can't ask people what they don't know. Deb, I've only just the penny only just dropped whilst Debbie was talking about what you're driving at with this question. I think Debbie smashed it when she said observational, because this is about behavior, right?
Yeah.
The only way you're going to do this on anything is understanding the user need, and this is the core of all UX. The user need. I need to know that this thing about so that I can do a thing. I know that sounds really trite, and there are many levels to user needs. A user need can be really glorious and really high level, or really applied and really low level. Like, if you're going to apply for this passport, you need to have this identification and this other thing ready to hand. You know what I mean? That you didn't know that you needed to have that stuff, but that's good UX to set expectations. That's a really shit example, but you can know where I'm going with that, right? Can you guys think of a better example? I mean, okay, so I'm working on a thing right now, without giving away any confidences, that relates to two-factor and multi-factor authentication. There's lots of different levels of experience regarding multi-factor authentication in the world today, because everybody needs to start doing it, but there's early adopters and later adopters. And so you have to be able to inform people at the right point in the journey. And give it too much in one go, it becomes a problem. You've got to give some up front, a little bit more as it goes. And what was failing user testing repeatedly, and we were all about to throw ourselves out the window, is now passing even accessibly at quite at 70 plus levels. Now, these are small samples. I'm not bragging, but it's much better. If things are going in the right direction, I've got a lot more confidence. So that's what I'm saying is ask people to do the thing. If it's like a buying tickets, go down to the station, stand there, do the contextual thing, watch stuff environmentally, listen to it, see what's going on. Otherwise, for the probably 80 to 90% of my work these days is all user journeys, digital user journeys. In which case, mock it up, watch them know. You're going to tease out what they don't know by the task that they have to do. I think that's what I've been trying to encapsulate with these rubbish examples. But yeah, I think I've said enough, but that's kind of
Yeah,
it.
and let me add to the last bit of the question before we move on to the next question, which was, but does this only work with an existing system? What if we're doing generative research? We don't know much about the domain yet. We don't know what knowledge people would have. You absolutely don't have to do this with an existing system. Hypothetically, if you're doing this with an existing system, this could be evaluative research. It could be generative, but you can absolutely do task analysis and observational research and all these things without having an existing system because, as Nick pointed out, this is just behavioral. We're trying to see how people do this now, warts and all, workarounds, band-aids, cheat sheets and notes, asking mom for help or whatever it might be. So whatever your user is trying to do now, hey, Steph, whatever your user is trying to do now, they're doing it some way. They're doing it with an Excel spreadsheet. They're doing it manually. They're doing it somehow. You don't have to have an existing system. You just have to see how they're doing that now. If it's digital, they can share a screen and walk you through it. If it's non-digital, like Nick said about buying tickets in a train station, then maybe you have to be in the train station and you have to be watching people and interacting with them there. So please don't think that you can't do observational or contextual inquiry or generative types of research or task analysis stuff unless you have the existing system. So I hope that helps.
One
And note to Larry.
tiny quick
Yes.
addendum. You can fake out so much stuff in Axure or even PowerPoint or, dare I say it, Figma, because all we're talking about are image map stuff to fake a visual journey. That isn't necessarily a web page. It could be, walk into the station, click, buy a button. You'll then see this sign. Which one makes more sense to you? There's all kinds of very creative, crazy ways which you can visualize journeys to try to chip away at that unknown knowledge to see, can they reference that knowledge, i.e. do they have it? Always,
So
it
true.
doesn't have to be a web page. That's what I'm saying.
All
Too
right.
much of this is all about web
I'm
design.
going to run to the next question. So here it says, I'm currently working with a client that wants testing focused on whether users like the visual treatment or not, and this feels more like marketing than usability research. Given how subjective sentiment towards visuals can be, is there a good way to accomplish this without getting a bunch of junk data?
Yes.
Sophie, I see you
I'm
carefully cooking.
smiling
Yeah.
because remember the golden rule of work, follow the brief. Your client asked you for testing focus on whether users like the visual treatment or not. Go and find if they like it or not. And that's the job. And if you don't like it, don't take it, but don't try to change the brief. And if you think the product is in dire need of usability testing, pitch to your client. I'm noticing a few things. I've run a heuristic analysis. I think you should want to see before you go live. But otherwise, deliver on the brief and have fun with it. Or don't take the job.
Nick.
Sophie is
Nick.
wise. This way, we are not worthy. The reason why I say that is because I'm wrong and the other way, right? So I am the asshole that will go and user test it and tell them what's wrong with it and why they couldn't buy the red shoes because the button contrast was way too low and all of that stuff, right? That's just how I am, and different practitioners have different ways. Sophie's obviously a lot better at playing the game than me. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not a good game player. I'm not good at this stuff. So yeah, I would when you break this down, and this is what's bugging me right now. Are you going to do like do you remember the 10-second test and those sorts of sites and that kind of
Oh
show
God,
you a
yes.
video
Yeah.
and then you have to remember what you saw in it? Or
Where's
you can
where
do an
have those
18
gone?
here's the champion, or here's route 1 and here's route 2. Which one do you like? I mean, all of the problems that I have with testing platforms like usertesting.com when I'm using their pool are highly conditioned professional testers who have been conditioned by a script that says, give me your first impressions of this website as the first question, and then the first 5 minutes is me watching them going, oh, I really like the red, and oh, it's really appealing, and I haven't asked for this. It's completely untriggered, completely triggered behavior by or unasked for behavior. It's really, really poor. What do you actually learn from that? People saying yes, you've got a whole bunch of confirmation or acquiescence.
That's
That's
yeah.
no
But this
good.
is
That's but Sophie's 100% right. That's the brief. That's what they want. They just want a pat on the back. Yes, the money you spent with the agency was good. Your job is safe. Here's your, it's all of that BS. I can't. I don't. I hate playing those games. I want to just do good work. And Sophie's a much more successful individual, I would imagine, because
I
her
turned
way
down
is
those
probably made to
briefs.
be.
I
Oh, there you
turned down
go.
those briefs, Nick. I'm like, hey, thank you very much. I think it's just a waste of your time and money. Which color do you like best? Which color does your wife like best? Which color does your mistress like best? Just go with it, buddy. It's your business. Have fun. What are you
Yeah,
going
what
to
I would
learn? They're
add to
not going to
this
buy, yeah.
Sorry, what I would add to this would be I think we've taken the perspective of this is a client or consulting thing that we can turn down. This person might be in house full time at a job, and their manager or product manager or some stakeholder is saying, "We just want to know which one's prettier. We just want to know which visual design people like better," and I think that can be a test that you run. I would probably end up trying to make it some sort of hybrid. I would try to find some way to test the visuals, but sneak in some usability as well, so that I can say, well, people liked this color or whatever, but they had a hard time getting through the prototype, or they really couldn't complete their task. So congratulations to us that our shade of blue looks pretty good, but we have some real usability issues here that we should be thinking about. Hello to Luisa Fernanda from Colombia. So yeah. So
And
anyway,
yeah,
real
one
quickly there, that's what I would suggest. You might not be in a position to say no, and also I think as we move towards design systems, style guides, and UI components, you won't have to do stuff like this because the visual design will be established, and you won't have to test it every time something is designed. It'll have been tested. Nick,
oh my, well, there's so many bits to what you just said. Okay, let me.
sorry.
Oh God, I just lost the main thing I was going to say. I was going to. It's gone. Okay, don't worry.
Steph is saying,
Um,
don't forget this famous story of the Sony Walkman. People said, oh, yeah, they want the yellow Walkman. And then they let people take a free Walkman on their way out of the test. You can Google this, it's a famous story. And they had a box of yellow Walkmans and a box of black Walkmans. And all the people who said they would love to have a yellow Walkman in the test took a black one on their way out. So
there's another classic bias with American president name, the Coolidge effect. I think it is. You know the one where it's voter station bias. People on the way in would never say they voted for Trump. They go in and they vote Trump. They come out and say, no, I voted for the other guy, Biden. And that's why exit polls are so awfully wrong, because people don't want to tell them the truth, basically.
Noel says,
Like
Noel's
you want me to
quoting
want
Nick.
your yellow one.
I just want to do
Sorry?
good work. No, Noel's quoting you on the screen. Hi, Noel.
Yeah. Right.
Noel. Sorry. All right. Let's go for the next one. Do you have any experience or advice on testing elements of gamification in a prototype? Who here knows about gamification?
I do.
Good, Nick. You
We all
first.
do. We all do. Good, Nick.
I spent time at a gaming company, and I say gaming like money gaming, not pew pew lasers and aliens gaming. Why isn't there a difference in those? Why isn't like one got a proper name? Because they're both called gaming, right? Whether it's poker and casino. But anyway, that's not the point. Gamification. You can test the daylights out of it in terms of the pattern, the journey, the interaction design. The engagement is a different game. It's a different story. And that's not something you can get in the lab that's easy. That is something that I've done repeatedly using web analytics and as an iterative feedback, right? And doing MVT type stuff and trying stuff experimentally. You're deep into the realms at this point, in my mind, of kind of conversion rate optimization in its truest sense. And I love this stuff. I wish I could do it all day and every day. I live for it. There just isn't enough of it out there as work. Yeah, that analytics, because understanding and playing with it when it's live in the real context, you're getting real engagement, real behavior. That's the actual stuff you're really after. And unless Sophie or Debbie have got a better way, you can't get that in a lab. Like I said, you can do the mechanics of it, but not the higher level cognitive stuff.
Sophie.
So can you put the question up? Because I want to make sure I answer it properly. But I think
Sure.
what got me smiling
Hi,
was
Ray.
this elements of testing elements of gamification in a prototype. The question is, what are you gamifying? And why does it it's this is what I don't understand. If you want to see if having a leaderboard means that users feel good about themselves and use the product more, then throw a leaderboard in there. If you think that adding little stars throws that, just do it. So you do it like anything else. Do they want to invite a friend? Do they want to share to TikTok? Do they want to see it? It's so I'm not clear what's everything. Anything can be gamified. You can throw a leaderboard into anything. It doesn't mean it's successful. So just build it, test it, be clear on what do you think you're going to get out of this feature. Let's say you say, I believe that when users see a leaderboard, they feel very excited about using my product. They talked about it to their friends, and they come more often, and they do more of something. You need to have clear goals, then test it. Gamification
And what
outside of actual games usually doesn't work. We know it doesn't work, except, and the only exception is maybe sports and fitness, where hyper competitiveness is the game. But other than that, even in games, I've done work for King and Candy Crush, and believe me, it's not as clear cut as you think.
Yeah, amen. Great, well said. Great.
audience specific?
Yeah, great stuff there.
Gambling.
And the only thing that I would add is if you think you're adding gamification because you think it's a motivator, make sure you have something for the people who are intrinsically motivated. Because the people who
Yeah.
are extrinsically motivated might enjoy points and coins and hats and clothing and virtual goods and stars and the mayor of whatever. But then there's people like me who don't fall for that shit at all, and sometimes even feel pushed away from it because it's just not my scene, and no thank you. And so make sure that is make sure your product is awesome and that I would want to use it even if I don't want to play whatever is the game. Hey Linda, hey Asan.
Was the mayor thing, was that Go Waller, or you're going back in time
Foursquare.
with that? Foursquare, yeah, I
Foursquare.
love it. Nice one.
Gosh, yeah.
Yeah, Steph
I
says most of the time what I've seen is artificial, poorly designed pointification more than actual gamification. You can earn points,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's it. All right, thanks. Moving on. Next question looks like this. It says, recently, a researcher in my department presented a case study of how they experimented with democratization of research for a project. Of course, as a longtime fan of Delta CX, I started tuning out, but I found myself getting angrier and angrier about the rosy depiction of this dangerous solution. The audience received this example positively because researchers are being spread thin in this company and they think this is an easy fix. Is my only choice to start job hunting? Is there a way I can counter this pernicious idea without alienating colleagues? And before I let everybody answer, I want to just quickly say, why didn't you say something? If you knew that it
Yeah.
was something you
Yeah.
didn't like, and if you have any case studies or things against it, why didn't you say something? Nick, the biggest troublemaker, is giving me shaky hand on whether or not somebody
Yeah,
should say
because
something.
that doesn't that again? Well, let's ask Sophie as our kind of Switzerland, or you can be our
Yeah.
referee, right? Um, um,
Start, Nick.
see,
Start. I'll pick it. I'll pick it up.
that to me sounds like troublemaking, and even with my lack of self
Troublemaking.
awareness, even I'm like that probably doesn't sound like a good idea. That what do you think? Like that, if this person says, I think democratization is really bad, it's going to produce shocking results. You're demeaning every researcher and all that
Well, I'm
stuff. And
not
if the
saying you
results,
would do that. Hold on there, little puppy.
Yeah.
well, you can't just say I disagree. You need to give some reasons.
Right,
Yeah. You
exactly.
need to back it up.
I guess my better question with more thought about this, I think I would ask, did you know ahead of time that the researcher was going to give this presentation? Because maybe that's a private conversation you could have had with the researcher, that there are multiple sides to this story, and you could have told her all the things we've talked about on the show, like you run the risk that you dilute research and that you that we teach people we don't need specialists because anybody can do research and learn it in
Yeah.
3 seconds. So I wonder if this could have been a private conversation with the researcher first before the researcher presented this, because Nick is right. Once the researcher's presenting it, you can't be like, I know you're presenting something right now, but you're wrong.
Yeah, and
That would be
it's
like
also
doing,
so because they're, yeah, presenting is not, this is the way the wind is blowing. So I think there's maybe a room for a kind of a counter presentation, which is what is about user research that many people think it's easy, but in reality is really hard to get right.
Yeah.
And there is the other case, which is if the research are spread very thin and the company is feeling the need for more research because they get the value, then help them and set up a scheme which equips these people with key core skills. Set up a way that they can run some simple things on their own, and have a mentor or a point of contact for understanding how to run more ambitious research, and help the company understand what's a simple research task that everybody can mess up everything, but if we review the discussion guide, if we review the survey, you can go and run it, and then I'll help you do it. And what's a more complex thing, so that you utilize your researcher well. And I've done training for companies that had user researchers and designers, and wanted to get some of the load of the simpler research off the senior researchers, because they really didn't have capacity. So what is the problem the organization's trying to solve, and is there actually a real opportunity for you to position yourself as a specialist, step up, implement, spread out the skills and research, and help resolve the problem.
And we know friend of the show, Aitan, just quit because her company announced they were going to democratize research, and she was a specialized researcher at the company. So you do run, and that happened when I worked at Macy's. The VP, who was a total imposter, announced that anybody could do any of the product managers who were known for manipulating numbers could do some research or some testing after 1 hour of training, and the entire department quit over the course of a couple of months. I have something I want to say back after what Sophie said, but I'll let Nick go first. Nick?
thanks. Just a quick one. I mean, if you care about the outcomes or when it matters, you don't democratize research, because what you're saying is I don't care about the outcome, right? It's the same thing we talked about carpenters and plumbers and bass guitarists and any other skilled profession, whether it's a brain surgeon or an astronaut or what have you.
Mhm.
It's you don't get somebody who calls themselves that doing the work. You get somebody who's got the experience of doing that, so that you get a good outcome. That's the bottom line of any skilled role. So what they're saying is they're not understanding. They're unconsciously incompetent. I mean that in a kind way. They just don't know what they don't know about research, right? There's a very good reason why drug discovery isn't done by the everyman. Okay, why PhDs exist for certain levels of scientific research, because if you're going to be working in a lab doing something, if you're going to be building a jet engine or whatever in your engineering, we need some kind of quality assurance that you've got the knowledge and the experience to do that. Research, I think as the world moves on, we're going to understand that research becomes more important, because people, they don't understand how blind they're flying right now. When that penny drops, I think it is dropping because we're all in high demand. Oh, and that's a massive thing to say. Sorry. The reason why this is happening is there's a skill shortage. Let's not forget that. So a lot of these companies, some of them would really love to be able to get user researchers, but they've spent months and months recruiting. I've been in too many senior leadership meetings with them saying, what are we going to do? The head of user research can't recruit people, or we can't retain them long enough. And so as a result of that, what do? And they've got a desperate need there. Product people are saying it. And product is telling everybody, do the user research. So once you put all these factors together, I think we have to let it hit the wall, make some big messes, kind of stay away from it, and then step in to save the day. That's usually how I play things. I spend most of my life rescuing stuff these days from people who've screwed up. That's how I'm making my money. It's all f ups.
Sophie, did you want to add something before I said something? Oh,
I think that the problem that's going to stay, yeah, very quickly is that there are not enough
thanks, Anna.
good user researchers.
True.
And by closing the gates and guarding it in, we're just going to compound the problem. So if a company appreciates you research, wants more of it, then we need to figure out ways of helping it. But if it becomes too uncomfortable for a person, they don't feel valued, they don't feel they're doing interesting work, then move on, whether they democratize or not. Like, it's got nothing to do with what other people do. It's like, when you do your job, do you feel valued? Do you feel recognized? Do you feel like you're delivering something that you're proud to stand on? And regardless of 100 million people doing research in the company or not. So it's so particular.
Yeah, and if
The
I could,
one
oh, go ahead,
question.
Nick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Wait, the last thing I want to lead. I'll leave this on. I'm very sorry, Debbie. Sorry.
It's okay. We'll get there.
This could be a separate show. Is no research better than some bad research? And honestly, I don't know the answer, and it keeps me up at night. It's the sound of one hand clapping, and it's contextual. Over to you, Debbie. Sorry.
Yeah. So, chances are the person who wrote this saw episode 115, where I go into this in some great depth. So, I don't want to repeat myself. I do want to recommend that people check out episode 115. You can just go to YouTube and write Delta CX 115. It'll come up. It's got chapters. You can easily find the part about democratization and is UX an easy upskill, and see what my opinions are on that. Hi, Craig. And so, a couple of things that I would say here is my general answers to, if we are in the mood to teach some people to do some research, why aren't we bringing in UX apprentices? Why aren't we bringing in UX juniors? This is where these jobs are going. These jobs are going to the product manager who's going to try to do UX research 3 hours a week. It's going to go to the scrum master who's going to try to run a couple of interviews. I say, look, if you have the time to do training and to raise people up and to oversee their work and to try to make their work better, then please open up junior and apprentice jobs. This is why we have the shortage we have now, because nobody wanted to open those jobs, and the gates started closing, and now we don't have those people, and now there is a wild shortage, and we're experiencing it where I'm working right now as well. I think a lot of people know I'm consulting at a German company right now. We can't hire senior researchers. We can barely find them. And so we have to open this back up. And I don't want to be elitist, but I do want to say I want UX work done by people who intend to have a UX career. So product managers, I'm so thrilled that you have so much extra time in your day that you can learn an entire other job. But if we have that need, and if we were going to train people with no knowledge and no skill, like product managers and engineers often have no knowledge and no skill in UX, for the love of whatever God you believe in, just open up a UX apprenticeship program. Or, these are people you can get very inexpensively. They are hungry, they are dedicated, they're smart, they're critical thinkers, except for a few, as some of you have told me stories. But anyway, that's my point, is if you're in the mood to train the people who intend to have a career in this, and stop giving our work to product managers and things like that. It causes a power imbalance, and it teaches the company you don't need UX specialists. Good luck getting headcount and budget ever again.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, and I retract what I was saying, which is, yeah, don't give it. Yeah, we're kind of giving fire to anyone. Maybe we shouldn't.
I say we
Fire,
shouldn't, but
fire
like
should reside with the
I'm
gods, but
I'm really, yeah, at my current company, I had a product director come to me and say, and I want product managers to start doing research. And I said, I'm not going to allow that. And he said, why not? And I said, well, which part of the research do you think your product managers are good at? We've got planning, we have recruiting, we have scheduling, we have conducting the sessions, we have analyzing the sessions, we have synthesizing the data, and we have finding the insights, opportunities, and pain points. Which part of that do you think your team can do? And he was like, well, we could do some interviews. And I said, but what if you're
That's not
bad at the
research.
interviews? Yeah, I said, but what
Yeah.
if you're bad at the interviews? And what about the rest of this? And then what I've been saying to these people is, yes, I want you there and I want your product managers to have firsthand experiences with the live sessions or the video sessions. But guess what? The questions don't have to come out of the product manager's mouth. In fact, the better vantage point is the observer vantage point, because now you don't have to juggle the script and neutrality and follow-up questions and observations. You just get to be an observer, and that is going to give you the first-hand experience that you want your product managers to have. Plus, I promise we're going to plan this with your product manager so that any open questions and things that they don't know, we're going to make sure we cover in it. So you're going to be involved in the planning, and you can be involved in some of the observation and note taking, but I don't want you doing anything else. And the guy actually was like, oh, that sounds great. They just want to be
I've
part of it.
recently, in the past couple of years, let's just say that, I have seen what this looks like firsthand. I've watched the video back of product people and delivery people conducting or facilitating interviews and panel work, and it's shock. If I was a market researcher, I'd be disgusted, but as a user researcher, it's wholly
Intimidating.
it's terrible. The work was really bad. I can't put it enough on. So all the classics: leading the witness, confirmation bias. There was two
Leading
or
the
three
witness.
people, or whatever you call that,
Yeah,
two
leading.
or
Yeah.
three,
Leading the
two or three.
participant. They're not a witness, Your Honor.
You know what I mean? Yeah, but that's where it
But
comes
Nick's
from.
been arrested, so.
As we all know.
Two or three. I can't say. Yeah, the point is they'd have two or three investigators and maybe two or three participants, all in this big messy room of just mess. Hippo behavior, power plays, just shocking,
Yeah.
really bad. I can't begin. There's so much need for good user researchers, and there's
Yeah.
so many great seniors out there. We've just got to link them together
We have to
and
raise them
have
up.
people mentored.
Yeah, I wrote down messy room of mess. I'm gonna have a new Dr. Nickism. It's a messy room of mess. And the other thing I wrote down was, it in response to what Dr. Nick just said. I got interviewed yesterday by two product managers at a company because there's no UX people at the company, and the product managers wanted to interview me. And about 6 questions in, I actually said to them, how is any of this actionable? I don't based on the questions, I said, I'm sorry, but based on the questions you're asking me, I don't understand what you're going to be able to go and do after this. I don't understand what you're going to be able to learn or change or prioritize. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. Oh, thanks, Ray. Ray has given $2. Thank you, Ray. Very sweet. Delicious chocolate chips for me. Thank you, thank you. Lint 70%, please. Not sponsored. Yeah, I said to the product managers, like, look, you guys seem really nice. You know, I love your company and your product, but I kind of don't understand your questions. I don't see how you're going to be able to do anything after asking me this. And you're asking me, when's the last time I had a problem using your product? People might not know, because I have so many workarounds for your product, it would make your head spin. So you should really be watching people use the product. So, to me, these are just examples of two nice people who really meant well and probably genuinely wanted to find good insights, but have no UX people at the company, and asked me some funky questions that I'm not sure are going to tell them what they think. So, yikes. Hi, Oz. Good to see you. Oz says, I'm in a situation now, fighting for better UX that seems to go against whatever some pinhead is deciding, sitting in a room looking at engagement metrics. The pinhead makes the decisions while the UX is truly awful. Oh, thank you, Oz. $8.88. That's a really great number. Thank you so much. By the way, everybody, follow Oz on Excel. He's on YouTube. He's Excel on fire. And if you want to learn Microsoft Excel to a level you didn't believe existed, you want to learn it from Oz. Definitely not sponsored. He's a friend of mine. Okay, I think we beat this question to death. Let me find the next one. Okay, I've got it. It's customer journey maps, everybody. Get ready. All right. Those are delicious. Joel Barr is here. Hey, Joel. Okay,
Hi,
this
Joel.
question says, I have a question regarding customer journey maps. One of our web designers asked me if there's a customer journey map for our website. The problem is, our customers rarely use our website to make a decision. I discovered it through one-on-one interviews. They mostly read forums, Apple Store reviews, blog posts, and if it makes sense for them, just come to our website to make a purchase, and after that, they use our app. Is there any practice for these kinds of situations? Interesting.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
What do you think? Who wants to jump on that one?
The exam answer is something longitudinal or diary study, I think, right? But in reality, I've never seen it work in the commercial world, not well. And I know there are people who have, and I think Babylon Health and some others have done some superb work in that area. I haven't. Um, but this is all. I mean, I don't want to go too far off topic, but for me, this is where Internet of Things and stuff comes in because I want more data points out there in the wild without having to break privacy and all of that stuff. How do you understand this kind of service journey or the consideration funnel? Offline is a whole different world. Um, I don't have a good answer for you. That's a simple one. I hope maybe Sophie does. He says, throwing
I
it over
think
to her.
give it to me. You said the right thing that there are two different things at play here. One is the journey that was designed across the website. So this is where the intention of the business was, and we welcome you on the home page, and we take you on our catalog page, and we take you on the product page, then you add to your basket, blah blah blah. So that the company should know. The company should be looking at this thing. They should have designed this ideal experience where you're taken, by the hand through the pages to build. Whatever knowledge you need to do whatever you've come to do on this website. And there's another thing, and this is the service map, which is what is ultimately the point of your website and where does it register in the grander world of the user? And this is a service map. And I don't know what so they mostly read forums, Apple Store reviews, blog posts, and then they come and make a purchase and use an app. Okay, so you're selling an app. Then I think you need to map to do this first. How was our website design, and then you map a second one, which is a service map, which is ultimately what do they want to do with this app. And I'll take an example. Somebody was talking about Duolingo earlier. It's a language app. I don't know, and then you place your product back into the greater scheme, and you service map what the user is really, what your customers are really trying to do. And you say, we're missing all these opportunities. And you map all the points. We have a page for this, but they don't go there. We have a page for that, but they don't go there. And then you try to fill in the gap or not. Maybe actually you don't have a landing page. If Apple Store reviews is doing the job, then less work for you. But
Do you know what?
this is where I think there are two things at heart.
One of the things I could suggest is try to work out what role the website does play in that journey. Because I did some work for Bentley cars. As you probably know, they're like big luxurious vehicles. You're not going to buy a Bentley, and I can tell you this based on the research that we did. You don't buy a Bentley just from buying the website. It's same sort from reading the website. Okay, you don't. But it does play a massive role in the service journey. Not just the website, specific functionality, namely a car configurator, i.e., where you can personalize it and change the leather and all that bits and pieces. But other sites like your website, whatever you're selling or what service you're providing, it will have a role. It might just be pricing. You know, I don't know what that role is. The other thing that came to mind whilst rereading that for the 8th time, competitors. Where does the competitor play a role, and how is the competitor handling this? And I'm not saying race to the bottom, copy them, but it's good to know what the customer user experience is, because they're the one that's being exposed or bombarded to or seeking out these different information or opinions.
Yeah, very much so. But it's interesting that the designer asks if there's a customer journey map. Like there's more
Actually,
to this story. Can we have
I'm
the
going to
full story and a
right back.
three-course dinner and plenty of alcohol to or
Uh,
tea? I'm going for a
I'm
cup of
I'm
tea.
on another
Oh,
planet right now, and I apologize. So first of all, my main question is, why does a web designer need a customer journey map? Like I just want to take a step back here and say, why does that person even need it? I like everybody's idea that you might want to go more in a service blueprint direction, but my brain is exploding right now because I just finished editing my new course today. My new course, Transforming Toward Customer Centricity. The video course is now up, deltacx.link/ttcc-training. I put it on my own website, which is where that will link you to, and I put it up on Udemy. And Udemy wrote me back rejecting the course, saying that people don't want to hear computerized voices and I will need to use my own voice. They thought my voice was text to speech.
I don't know if it's a compliment or not, but yeah.
I get it. I went to voice acting school and I've got a professional narration style, but holy cats, people, like that's my actual voice. I've been putting courses up on Udemy for like 6 years. They should be able to go compare to the other courses. And yeah, so Udemy just rejected my course claiming that I cannot use text to speech. I will have to speak this live.
How do you claim back? Like,
I just wrote back and I said, what are you talking about? This is my actual voice. Go listen to the rest of my Udemy courses. Go watch me on YouTube. I'm live right now. Go listen to me live on YouTube. This is what I sound like. You know, I used to get that a lot when I used to answer my phone. I would be like, P-type, as was, this is Debbie. And people would go, oh, wait, you're a person. I go, yeah, I'm a person.
Superpower.
So sorry. So hopefully Udemy will see that. I don't know if I'll have to write to customer support or what, but that was effed up, y'all. I've sent so many courses to Udemy and I've never had them say that. I think I should just share my screen. Who wants to see it? Does anyone believe me here? Let me see if I can. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I want to put it up. Let's see.
I think it's wonderful to see, AI bots for this and not, sorting out actual abuse and harassment, but sure.
Right, here it is. Text-to-speech software is not allowed on Udemy. We found students don't like computerized voiceovers. You'll need to add your actual voice to your lectures before we can move forward.
How did they identify this? They ran it again to you. No one listened to it. They run it through an algo, which
I
is
have
badly
no
configured.
idea. I mean, the course is up on my website. People can go
Yeah.
hear it and, it's welcome to Transforming Toward Customer Centricity. I'm Debbie Levitt.
Yeah, and I think it's just it's a
Yeah.
sad world.
Yeah, David says, you use diction and enunciation. Yes, funny
So
that.
true.
Yes, sorry, everybody. Your speech is too predictable. Yeah. I don't know what to tell anybody. I'll let you know how that story ends because I just wrote them back and I said, what are you talking about? I recorded that live in my home studio. What? So a bot identified you as a bot.
Jeez.
Oh, that's
Chi
too
chi chi.
good. Oh my gosh. I guess Nick went to work to handle his barbecue
He went to
ribs.
take care of his barbecue, I think. Yeah, somebody
All
has
right.
a multitasking approach to
Yeah.
life.
Well, it sounds delicious. I'm going to put up the next question since it was mostly to me. And that's perfect timing. So somebody said, hey, in your last workshop, you mentioned you use Monday.com. Hashtag not sponsored. To plan stuff, do you know any free alternatives? Excel, Google Sheets. Well, Excel's probably not totally free. Google Sheets, Excel. Some people might use Airtable. I don't know. To me, Monday.com is worth paying for, but that is just me. Joel says, clearly you're a robot unless you can pick out boats from buses. Good one. Yeah, I'm using Monday.com. Sophie, do you have any particular software you use for planning projects?
So my life is lived to Trello, which is a different thing because I'm very agile. I'm very Kanban. So Trello, I've become a super user of Trello. I've implemented it with both my companies, and it's our source of truth. But I'm surprised because Monday.com has a free pricing
I thought so
model for
too.
up to 2 seats. So, at some point, if you want to be in business, there's a cost to being business.
Yeah,
€6 a month is not,
that's not bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Um,
when it takes the work off your hands, it's often is worth paying for it. So,
It's worth it. Yeah. Okay. So this question was for me, but I'm going to open it up to everybody else, which is a kind of how did you learn UX question? The questions to me says, I've mentioned I have a degree in music and I discovered CX after I took a course in psychology and implemented those theories on a website. How did you proceed after that? How did you learn about science of UX and IA? What resources did you use to learn it in depth? So what happened was I took some psych courses in uni for fun. They had nothing to do with my major. And then after college, I ended up creating a website design company, but everybody knows I'm not an artist. So it was kind of more website strategy and website planning and website creation. I hired someone else to do the art. And I decided I should really design websites based on what I just learned in my psych classes on how people parse information. And then only years later did I learn like that's a thing. And it's called, UX among other things. I mean, after that, once I learned that there was a formal thing, I just started reading all the things that I could read, which at the time in the 2000s was just a lot of Don Norman stuff. And, so I still didn't get any classical training in it. I didn't take any college courses. I didn't get a degree in it. I just ended up absorbing it from everywhere that I could. So I don't have a great answer about how I learned it because I think it was a lot of books. I think it was a handful of books in 2008. So I'm going to pass this to our other friends. Nick, we know you have a PhD. Maybe Sophie, how did you learn UX?
well, back in those days, I started in UX. So I did UX before knowing what it was. The sense of mapping out what you want on a page and thinking of the progress of the user through the content and across the various pages. I was doing this in '98. I became a professional, as in I was paid to do this because I read a lot about it. Same thing, early 2000s. We're talking 2005. But Peter Morville's book, the Polar Bear book, was doing UX on the job, not really knowing it. I was working in digital marketing at the time, and I was just naturally doing these things of let's see what the users do, and no PDFs are bad. Let's see if we can do things better. And reading and Twitter came out, and between a couple of books, I think Morville's book was really critical in what I was doing. There was, sorry, I'm not at home, so I can't reach out to see those books. Um, but I think there was Russ Unger's book as well. Um, and Twitter and LinkedIn were such a source of information, and still are, that I learned so much by listening to the conversations and asking questions and then being employed and being able, and then being trained, mentored by senior UXers, because I have a degree in French literature and language.
And I have a
Nothing
degree
to
in
do with
music.
UX or psychology.
Dr.
Can I
Nick,
chip in though?
please.
Yeah, because my PhD has got absolutely nothing to do with this, believe it or not.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, it really has nothing to do with it. I didn't learn anything about UX in my PhD. The PhD is not there as a training program. The PhD, at least in the UK, is 100% research. Mine was about personalization. It's totally relevant if I'm working a personalization gig or for a brand that needs that from me. But in terms of general UX, nothing to do with it. And I say this at conference, I see this anywhere I can. You don't need a PhD. In fact, you absolutely don't need a PhD. It's a waste of time getting a PhD to do UX. Everything that I know came from my Bachelor of Science in Psychology, not my master's, not my PhD, everything from that. And I graduated in 1996 with my Bachelor of Science. I took my final year was all about human computer interaction. One of the options that I took, or subsids, what we call them, modules. Um, and my final year project was all about scotopic sensitivity syndrome, which is basically a form of kind of like dyslexia or Erlen syndrome, which basically states you can read better with a reduced color contrast. And so my hypothesis was, can I create that same reduction in color contrast, beneficial reading effect in people who don't have any kind of reading issues? And one condition was software background color, and one was actually a gel on the screen. So the point is I've been doing this for a long time. Where I learned my UX, my IA, and everything else was literally taking the psychology bits and applying them in the real world. So because I've been doing this for 12 years now, when I started out, I'm sitting there at my first gig going, WTF? Like, doesn't anybody know this stuff? Like, we did this in Psychology 101. And that's how everything you see since is just me going, mouth, jaw on the floor, like, why are you guys all starting this from fresh? We've been doing this for decades. And so all I've been trying to do is marry up the bits that are relevant or the principles that guide me in psychology to the daily practice of UX. And that's why this whole gold rush of our UX UI stuff, it's detracting from us moving forwards. It's stopping me progressing where I was. I'm now right back at square one, telling people, you are not the user, fight for the user. The same messages Sophie and I and Debbie all had are well over 10 years ago. But we're right back there here today, and that's the crime.
So I'm going to jump in and mention that we have 10 more questions and 40 minutes. So we're going to have to close down questions for now. Any questions anybody asks from this point on will have to be answered next week. I will be, of course, doing office hours next week, and we do have a special guest. It will be a guy I don't really know. We'll see what he has to say. I spoke to him once. He seemed interesting. I figured bring him on. I've been doing that a bit. So new guy is going to be joining me next week. We'll see what he says. But for now, we've got 2 questions that came from different people, but they were both for Dr. Nick, so I'm putting them together. Dr. Nick, why don't you post new videos? And what's the pink book behind you on the shelf?
All right, so the pink, I'll take the easy one first. The pink book is just, I only literally picked it out from my big bookshelf.
And maybe the one next to it as well also looks pink. The one next to it also looks pink. No. There's a pink one next to Delta CX.
Oh, okay, so this one was written by pink. Where's there a pink?
Is that a porn book?
Sorry, that's Jordan Peterson. It's white. It's coming across pink on camera.
Okay. I think the person meant that one. Sorry to yell at you there. It was a Bert and Ernie bit for a moment there.
That's a Jordan Peterson book. Anyway, they're just there because they're the right colors and right words, and they're there aesthetically more than any kind of reference material, apart from Delta CX, which is a mandatory Bible for UX.
Well, thank you. When I publish my next one, I'll send it over.
Thank you. The next one I'll try to do real quick. The reason why I'm not doing new videos, although I really desperately want to, I don't think UX Psychology is the right channel. I'm about to create a new channel called Behavioral UX, which is more inclusive, less daunting, more for anybody to label themselves, whereas UX Psychology was never about that. It got misconstrued and got taken. It was really meant for psychologists like me, but it turns out I'm like a team of one, or a few, not many. But actually there's a huge appetite for behavioral or just basic user-centric design as we're talking today, and it's basically a splinter from UX, because UX means too much to too many people right now, and I don't want to live under the same banner as a UX UI person. I want to be free to practice my way, or our way, if you know what I mean, without arguments and debates and discussions and all that stuff. So behavioral UX seems like a nice signposty type thing, and that's what I'm going to do. So I will be putting out new channels. Be aware, I'm currently working, I had a GDS assessment last week. If you know anything about government work, that's a big deal with a lot of work. I've got another one in 3 weeks' time. I just don't have the time, or more importantly, the inclination to put my work brain in when I want to turn it off, if you know what I mean. It's just that. The final reason for me not putting out a lot more content is you can see the theft of UX right now going on by product, by management consultants. It's rife. In fact, transformation is just nothing but fraud these days. If I put out a lot of my good stuff on the channels, on social media, there's an above average chance it gets into the wrong hands and is bullshit into a PowerPoint deck, and they make another few £1 million from another one of my clients. I don't want to arm the people with the knowledge for them to bullshit and fake and ruin our world. So it's not that I'm keeping stuff back from you guys. I've got to be really careful how the information that we release is used, because it's highly valuable and also it's dangerous in the wrong hands. Sorry,
I've
that's
put
just
up
how I
the
feel.
next question to you. The next question was, what do you mean about product managers stealing UX?
Okay, so it's kind of in a nutshell, it's everything that Sophie and Debbie have been saying. Product managers have been democratizing things, but they've not just been democratizing UX, they've been told by their peers, mentors, idols, whatever you, role models, that product managers should be doing the UX. Um, and the problem is it's the same kind of UX theft that we saw from UX UI, i.e., from the design community, who saw us all wireframing and thought, "Well, hang on a second, you're doing a design job. We're pro designers. I want it," and they took the wrong thing, or they took it and made it the wrong
Yeah.
way. They reinvented the wheel as literally a dodecahedron. Um, a very pretty three-dimensional shaded one, cell traced or whatever, blah, ray traced. What we can't do is support them in this. I see product management as UX management. Okay, I think it's a synonym, right? I think it's about managing the experience and ultimately money and product and so and all that. But that's just the way I look at it in my tiny little brain. Um, yeah, that's what we mean stealing the UX. UX is a dedicated process. It's all about research into design at its core. If you're not doing that, you're stealing the UX. And if you're doing it and calling it UX, you're stealing UX. UX people should be doing UX.
All right, fair enough. I am going to get the next question up on the board, and we'll get Sophie involved once again. Thanks for waiting through some Dr. Nick questions. And this one is, how does a UX designer get better at understanding strategy? Sophie,
I'll take this one.
thank you.
So forget the word strategy for a second. You need to understand business. Strategy is how you plan and execute in order to keep the business ticking. So try to go and learn wherever your organization is, what is the actual business? How does the money come in? How does the money go out? Are you a service industry where what goes out is what was in people's brains slapped onto PowerPoint decks or wireframes? If you're in a product company, it goes out in boxes and it's shipped. You need to understand what a business is. And then the business, through the CEO and the board, will set directions. For example, we are going to grow our Asia business. Long story out how to get there, but then all the products all of a sudden need to cater for Asian languages. Maybe you need to have your product in maybe Chinese, Japanese, and I don't know, Bahasa Indonesia. And you get to see the product, the operational decisions and the work, like, okay, now we localize into those languages. But you to get the strategy, which is how we're going to get there, you need to understand the business. So this is why at some point all designers need to get out of the design beautiful space of the users and understand what is the economic and political world they're living in, aka the business.
That's a great answer. I would say, from my perspective, it's experience, right? So as you do more diverse things, like Sophie said earlier, in terms of horizontals and verticals and different sectors and different contexts, you start to understand the strategy that you're working either towards, as part of that, and you start to learn what strategies have worked and which strategies haven't worked over time, and that's really really valuable. I mean, you're going to get that anyway. What I would suggest, or maybe, yeah, it's just an idea, because UX has become kind of research design and strategy in some areas of the world, like America's UX strategy is, I think, a much bigger thing. Try to represent this stuff in your folio. We had a customer acquisition strategy, we had a reduction of customer churn or cost strategy, and this is how we planned to use the research, and this is how we executed, and this is what we learned, and this is how it informed that bottom number that Sophie's talking about, i.e., the business mechanics, the economics of it.
Sorry, I muted myself because while you guys were answering, I decided to write to Udemy customer support because the bot continued to send me messages that my course was not approved because I'm using text to speech. So I had to handle that. I apologize. So I'm just going to move to the next question and thank everybody for answering that while I was distracted. Hi, Debbie, Sophie, and Dr. Nick. For research planning, I recognize 8 to 10 users for each persona or typology is a good practice. I recognize boot camps are misrepresenting NNG's 5 users guideline, but have you heard of companies settling with 5 for research? How often does this occur, and is it common in startup culture? Yes to everything. Sophie?
Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. And so I'm wondering what the real question is. Is the real question I need to do better? Is my company doing better than others? I feel like we're left out of the bigger story and the real question in there. Nick,
Nick.
read the
Yeah.
question
Okay.
again. What do you think?
This happens kind of all day and every day. Doing 5 users is okay if it's within a sprint and you're going to do it next sprint, i.e., it's part of an ongoing, I call it cascading strategy, but you understand what I mean by cascading 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, i.e., as long as you're doing agile or ongoing iterative research, then you're rock and roll. You can't go wrong. I mean, the users are going to guide you. Unless you're doing shocking work, you're going to learn. Have I seen people who just go, yeah, we've done 5 users, I know everything, let's walk away? Absolutely. I've seen people, I spoke to Dave and he said he wants it red, so let's build a £3 million product red. You know, I've seen all of that. I mean, we've all seen it. It's completely batshit crazy. I would draw attention though. What was getting me? You said for research planning, I recognize 8 to 10 users for each persona or typology is good practice. I don't know whether that's good practice or not. I mean, that sounds actually pretty heavy. If you've got a deck of five personas, that's 50 users, and you can do that in each round, each week. That's heavy going. So on the current
That's
project that I'm on, I
recommended for
recently
generative. 8 to 12
okay,
is recommended for generative. 5 per persona or typology is recommended for evaluative.
yeah. So I've recently just reduced the deck down from it was around 15 personas in alpha. I've just reduced it down to 3 because
Yeah.
I cannot differentiate the insight any other way. And that's what works. So what I'm saying is everybody are looking for the rules of UX and they're looking for this Bible, like this way to do things. And we are always on this show saying, well, it depends. And that's where the experience comes from. And that's, well, it depends. There are times when that's bang on and there are times when that's not. And only experience is going to help tell you that. I know that you don't want to hear that, but that's the truth.
Yeah, and I think what I would add to this question, knowing I want to jump to the next one because we have less than a half hour and so much going on here. A few more questions. Would be how often does this occur? Is it common in startup culture? It's common in startup culture to do no testing and to just say, we're going to release it live to the public and then run a survey or see what complaints come into customer support. So remember, like, startup is like, no rules. They often don't care about these guidelines. And so you have to be prepared, especially at a startup or a really low maturity company, to see all kinds of things passed off as research or testing. They will tell you the worst ever written survey is good research and we really understand users. And they will tell you, testing it with 2 guys by the coffee machine in the office was testing and it went well and we're going to run with it. So, in some of those jobs, you have to be prepared for everything. You can try to push back and say, well, here's an article that says our best practices, or you can just say, article or not, these are our best practices. It's better to meet with this number of people, and let's not forget people with accessibility needs, and let's not forget diverse audiences so we don't end up talking to 6 white startup bros. You can try to do that. But just know in a startup, you might not be able to push against that. Nick, something to add?
Yeah. In my very first job, as a user experience executive. I was at an insurance company, and the long story short was we were arguing about where a button went at the bottom of my wireframe, and I said the OK button goes on the right in Western culture, and he was like, no, it goes on the left. And I was like, no, it definitely doesn't. But that doesn't matter. Let's test it, right? So I did it with usability, and I got people on. At the time, it was all about heat maps and where would you click type stuff. So I got anyway, the point being is that 18 out of 20 people all clicked on the bit on the right. Okay. And I showed him, I said, look, I sampled 20 people, 18 of them all clicked on the button on the right. He said, yeah, but that's only 18 people. I mean, I'm used to surveys of 2 or 3,000, the market research conditioning. And you're like, oh man, I mean, that's a tough gig when that happens. I actually quit the next day because when you're up against that stuff, I was also the first person in the company as a UX person, and this is UX in 2009. So it's a different world, basically.
Sophie?
Sorry.
Anything?
No, nothing to add this time. You've said it all.
Yeah, okay. No problem. We're going to jump to the next one. It's a little bit of a strange question, but here we go. This is, how do I integrate my UX research work into Jira or Azure DevOps? I'm always confused about how we pull in research completed into a dev team sprint, given that research has a different backlog. Ooh, this is when I say try track agile. Get us
Yeah.
out of get us out of
Yeah.
engineering stuff.
Yeah.
Sophie, it hurts.
All right. I'm a big agile fan, and I'm a big believer of the one team model, which is, it's a blended team, it's a balanced team, hint, hint, nudge, balanced team. And that means that the researcher is close to the engineers. It's not easy, it's not simple, but it's really worth it. So, when you work with me, you are expected to put your user research work as tasks in Jira. I don't ask you to complete it in a sprint, but I expect you to list out the things you're going to do as individual nuggets, and just show that there's work in. First of all, what it does is that it shows that there's work in progress. Two, it helps understand if there's too much work in progress. Maybe too many people are asking too many things, and you're running an interview, and you're writing a transcript, and you're trying to map this, and you're trying to write a report, and and it's just too much. But it also sometimes helps keep track of tasks, because there are tasks. I need to recruit people for next week's into research. I need to transcribe these in sessions that I've done. I need to block time to analyze this block of things. Like, everything can be, you can see Jira as a to-do list. And what it helps is show that you're one team, one tool. It doesn't bound you by the same rules, which is, you don't have to have things in review, or it doesn't, it's branched out. But, you get to benefit in particularly when, if you're used Jira in Kanban mode, so you move things eventually to the done column, you get to have this achievement. Like, I've spoken to 5 more users. I've transcribed these 3 things. And that gives a common vocabulary, which is, although it's a different cycle and different lengths of tasks, and very few tasks in user research are micro tasks that you can do, but you still need to deliver as you go, and you need to track your work. And I think it helps everyone to account. I don't know about Azure DevOps, this said, which I have no idea how you would do in there, because I don't understand how you would do user research for DevOps unless you're developing a DevOps tool, but then you would be working with a product team anyway. But yeah. So
Nick,
be
anything to
warned,
Yeah, I
add?
you
mean,
will use Jira with me.
I'm only going to go quick because I'm going to let you answer this one, Deb. But you and I are on the same page. The only time I've ever worked UX in a successful agile manner has been when it's been dual or tri-track. Simple, right? It's the only way UX works with engineering. It should be de facto. It should be standard issue, standard practice across the world, because it just works. Everything else doesn't work. That's my experience, yeah, that's the bottom line. I mean, I fully support Sophie's one team thing. Being close to devs or engineers is fundamentally critical culturally, from the product or the services perspective, from show and tells and demos, from socializing research. cultural change, transformation. It's just a beautiful, brilliant thing. It's not always easy, but it's absolutely the North Star, 100%. But dual or tri-track.
Yep, agree. And what I wrote down here for this was my concern is that UX research or other stuff put into Jira is likely to be lost to time because it's in a ticket, and eventually that ticket will be resolved, and then someone will say, oh, where's that research we did about that thing? Jira is not a research repository. And so what I would probably
Amen.
suggest is that you need some sort of research repository. I hear good things about Aurelius, but I'm not using it right now, so hashtag not sponsored on that for sure. No, yes.
Confluence?
Oh,
I
I'm
mean,
not sure.
whatever you use,
Yeah, and
whatever
then
you want
link
to
it
use,
to
but I think you're
Jira.
absolutely right. Yeah. Jira is not a knowledge repository ever, but just Jira is also not the knowledge repository for your devs. That's their GitHub
Right.
or whatever form of code repository they're using. So let's not mix our tools. Jira is a tool to track the work that needs to be done until it is done.
Yep. Yeah, so I don't want to see UX stuff lost in a Jira ticket somewhere that is in an icebox or is done or whatever. So I would say make sure you have UX research and planning and insights and video clips in a repository, whatever that is, whether it's a schmancy fancy repository or it's a Confluence page, and you can link that from a Jira ticket if you want.
It's usually going to be, if you're going to get Jira, you're likely to get Confluence as part of,
Yeah.
just because it's Jira Confluence, the same
Basically, yeah.
Yeah,
Atlassian,
Atlassian.
you know.
So we have our last question coming from Craig, I think. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. Oh, thank you, M, for subscribing. Steph says, we use Jira Actions because we don't have Confluence. It's not that bad. I can use Jira Search to get my interviews back, but it's a hack. Yeah, it doesn't sound great. So our last question is a complex one. I'd like us to spend some extra time on it, and then we're going to, play ourselves out of here. So listen to this, and people are getting hurt. I've been finding a lot of tension between UX and experimentation teams not working together. I find the UX folks misinterpret what the experimentation teams are doing and vice versa. Have you come across this problem before? What have you done to help both sides see that they're trying to solve the same problems, just using a different set of research and measurement methods? I would love them to work more together, but in some companies there is hostility between the two groups, and I wish I could help improve the situation by helping them understand that their work is towards the same goals. Usually, any advice is appreciated. I10 says, what is an experimentation team? Craig, maybe you can explain that. I would think it's a sort of product discovery team, or maybe a team trying to push out MVPs or experiments quickly, but maybe Craig can also clear that up. Who is on the experimentation team, and what are they usually doing? Nick?
Yeah, I just want to ask Craig, are you talking about like an optimization team, like a web analytics team who are
No, he
doing a lot
says
of
it's a
MVP type
product
work?
team running experiments. So my guess would be that this is a product team saying, we have ideas. We want to see if these ideas are good or bad. So we're going to get some A/B tests or some
Yeah.
MVPs out there. That is my guess, that this is a product team, not an analytics. Craig says it could have PM, UX, dev, experimentation. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So what's the UX
Can
team
I
doing?
exactly like what's it sounds like there's a very simple what that's very
Structural.
effed up. Like so as an organization, but remember it's like every organization has this, like the R&D team does the cool stuff and everyone else does the boring. So is this problem of some people get the cool shiny toys and everyone else gets to tinker on the dodgy old tractor.
That's
um
assuming you have an R&D team. Most companies have fired and shut down R&D, and now they just ask product
exactly.
managers to run A/B tests and rush out MVPs and ideas.
So I mean, I'm wondering, it's interesting. So this for me links directly to a product life cycle, which is, you need to, I mean, not even that, because experimentation would be we are experimenting with new products, new business models, new opportunities that have nothing to do with our existing products. And no one should be jealous. If you want to work in that team, go work in that team. But if they're experimenting with product features and functionalities, then it shouldn't be a separate team being completely isolated. That is very offensive to the product team, who has intimate knowledge of the product and its users. And B is like silos. Creating in silos is a very good way of failing at a very high cost. So I am, you can see by my face, I'm extremely puzzled by this. Just run away. These people have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm writing down a bunch of notes for whenever it's my turn. Nick, did you want to jump on something around this?
Yeah, I'm still kind of unpacking it because there's a lot going on in there, Craig. Um, it sounds to me that the experimentation team is all about impact, right? I think that's a fairly safe assumption. However,
Yeah.
they're comprised, they're about impact and effect, or whatever you call that. Um, this you could be a hero here if you can be the unicorn or be the the uniter of tribes, or you know what I mean, the everyman. Because it sounds to me, and again, forgive me, I don't know, I'm literally just trying to do this on the fly. But if the UX team's research sounds to be a bit unfocused, right? It seems to be they're doing research either for research's sake, but you're saying there's no connection between the activity of the research of the research of the UX team and basically the impact to the organization through the experimentation team, right? Well, that's making that connection is literally the Holy Trinity. I don't think you can, not Holy Trinity, they're like the magic connection, because you're not going to change this place structurally. That seems weird to have such an overlap, and that's probably what's freaking Sophie out as it is much me. Like, why UX is inherently experimental, as is product management. Why have a dedicated team? But if it's about, well, no, because how do you experiment on impact? Because that's a reactive thing, right?
Well, he's saying A/B tests. A lot of experimental
So
A/B
it's as I
tests.
thought. Yes, they are hammering Gomez or one, an MVT, Adobe Experience Manager, one of those, and they're going experiment. Let's make the button red and 10 points bigger. Do you know what I mean? That kind of stuff is often what they mean by experimentation. Again, Craig, please. Oh, okay, good, lovely. So it is. It's basically between analytics and UX, and I do see this a bit because what happens is web analysts get a bit sometimes a bit ahead of themselves and make all kinds of assumptions because they're looking at data. And I'm going to say this. I know Debbie's heard me say it a bazillion times. The difference between the two, between user research or UX and web analytics, is it's like looking at a big radar. Okay, and you're going to see that there's a blip happening on the horizon. And if this radar is your web analytics, I can see blips and I can see peaks and troughs. So I can tell you what is happening, but I can't tell you if that blip is a battleship or a canoe. And that's it. So in order to understand that, you send a user researcher in or a paratrooper to go and look at the thing. Yes, sir, it's a frigate, it's a cruiser, it's a whatever, right? You get to understand what's actually going on through the user research. But a lot of web analyst teams are becoming, since web MVT became a big deal about 5 or 6 years ago, it's become the easy button. Put it through the machine. Let's just run an experiment. And there's no logic. There's no structured thinking or structured inquiry. It's like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Literally, that's the strategy. It's a bit like brute force optimization. And if that's the case, Craig, it's about informing them. It's about, I do a thing here, I trigger a user need, and guess what happens? We make money, or they come back again, or they stay longer on, they consume more, whatever the thing is, okay? Make that link. You'll be a freaking hero. You'll change the world.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump all over this one if people don't mind. Everyone, get ready, go to sleep. Craig says, "Yeah, it's a problem I'm talking about. The experimentation people don't get doing proper research, and the UX people don't get the value of testing stuff." Well, I bet they do. We probably just don't like how you're doing it because remember, UX usually doesn't live in an A/B test world. You do not A/B test your way to a design. You A/B test performance versus what you have out there now. A/B is a measurement of performance, hopefully in a longer term arc than just a short term metric. But UX, you do not A B test your way to good UX or good usability or the right solution. A B tests are designed to be incremental. Well, we made this button, 2 pixels wider. We want to see if more people click it. I changed one thing, and that way I know if I get some sort of result, it's thanks to making the button 2 millimeters bigger. So the idea of A/B test is supposed to be a controlled experiment where only one thing is different, so that if there is some sort of quantifiable outcome, we know what it was for. So you do not A/B test your way to a design, to usability, to a solution that is never going to fly with real UX people. So that's number one. Number two, the question that I have around your experimentation is, are you using task-oriented or feature-oriented approach? If this is, what, I think it would be really cool if all of our customers started having to give us their phone numbers. Let's experiment with that. Well, hold on. Is that just an idea you had? You stole it from a competitor? The stakeholder asked for it? It's a new KPI or OKR? Or, which would be feature oriented, or is this task oriented, where we did proper UX generative research first? We learned the pain points and the insights. We prioritized those, and we said, aha, we realize that there's something that people need related to this aspect of their task or this aspect of the system. Now we have to solve that problem. But to me, at that point, that's not experimentation. That's just designing the right thing for the unmet need and for the opportunity. So I think the question is, what is experimentation? Because it sounds to me, and I may have this wrong, it sounds to me like it's, wait a minute, someone has an idea of a feature we should build, circumvent UX, get it out as an MVP or an A/B test, and let's just see what happens with this thing. I find that UX is normally circumvented in this case, and that is probably why there is so much conflict here. Plus, it sounds like the methodology, to me, doesn't match anything that I would suggest a company do. When I try to suggest things to people for product discovery or things like that, it doesn't sound anything like this. Nick.
Yeah, because they can't attribute anything, and because of any real attribution, because they're trying this random try everything approach. They'll have some debates internally, or they'll have some false confidence about what they know, and that creates all kinds of problems. But this is about the wrong application of MVT. Debbie's kind of, I think, either touched on it or said it. MVT is for optimization. Okay, it's for optimizing things. It's
You
once
mean
you've
A/B
got a solution,
test?
right? It isn't. I've written here, it doesn't replace working to user needs. Okay,
Sophie, something
if
to
you want
add?
to move the needle, you got to work to user needs.
It's you know what, what's interesting is I don't understand if, again, if so I was right when it was about product lifecycle earlier on, which is there's this thing in the beginning when you identify a product where you try to get what the product should be for that audience and that market. It's not just what the people want, it's can they buy it, do they want to buy it. So it's product, market, and users. And in the beginning you optimize for this, and you can't A/B test your way into that. You can't MVT test it. So you can you work through this stage of the product later on. But then once your product has found its audience, has found its market, and just needs to keep growing, or at least keep these people happy, depending whatever your business model is, and then you need to find those little tweaks that keep the product relevant and fresh and engaging in a changing landscape of technology. This is where the MVT comes in. So again, I'm curious as to what stage in the life cycle that product is. How is this organization managing the various life stages of the various products in their portfolio? Why are different things doing different things? And I'm wondering if there's any sanity and reason to the whole thing to start with.
Yeah, Craig is saying the experimentation team will argue, why not measure that impact? I think it's not that we're against measuring the impact, we're against what came before it. We're against the idea that the team is playing blindfold dartboard with the user experience. Craig says they would like to know that the product is useful and can be used and delightful, but they would like to quantify the value of changes in some cases. Look, that's going to happen no matter what. I mean, every professional product team has metrics and KPIs and OKRs and ways to measure good and bad metrics. I don't think we're going to get away from people measuring things, but the question is, how did we get to the experimental product or feature? That's my concern, and it's probably professional UX researchers and designers' concerns, is that how did we get to this particular feature or idea? Most of the time, it's a stakeholder or it's an exec or it's a product manager who says, hey, what if we did this thing? And sometimes the UX people are going, wait a minute, we don't know if that's a good idea. Or wait a minute, we have research that tells us that's not a good idea. And everybody says, but we should be experimental and innovative and disruptive. And I go, but we're not even getting simple things right. You can't even pay your bill. You can't even post a job. You can't even do whatever your site's supposed to do. I'm less worried about innovative and disruptive when I want to just throw my phone out the window with whatever company this is. So, and I'm for hypothesis-free experiments, but the thing is, what are we building and why? And I think we're missing the whole arc of what did we learn about users? What problem are we trying to solve? How did we know that's a problem? What do we know about their task? What do we know about their perspectives? What do we know about their motivations? What do we know about their decision-making processes, their collaborators, their mental models? Or are we just like a bunch of startup bros, around a coffee shop going, oh my God, we should just try this thing and just see, we'll measure it. We'll just try a thing and we'll measure it. And it's like, that might be cool when you're two startup bros and hoping to find some product market fit. But I think a lot of teams, especially experiment teams, forgot about product market fit. And they got into this, let's just experiment and fail fast. And let's just measure this shitty metric that sometimes is not customer centric. It's business centric. Like, hey, they spent more time on the site. And it's like, no one wants that. Oh God, now Iton says, let's remember pinky gloves once again. Ouch, ouch. Nick?
Okay. By using MVT type methods, in a good scenario, you might get 0.15% uplift on a particular function, or that kind of magnitude typically, right? And these are massive generalizations, so, right?
Because it's incremental.
Yeah, but in user research, it's not uncommon to get a 15% uplift, right? I mean, we're talking about decimal places here, right? So what I'm saying is operationalizing or meeting or sating user needs is infinitely more powerful, not infinitely, but significantly more powerful in terms of impact than multivariate testing or that kind of strategy. And and that's a huge generalization, but I'll hang my hat on that, my reputation, because that's what I've done in the past. I can move the needle far further through UR than I can MVT, and I've got some good MVT wins. I really do. But they're not the same magnitude. I've done £16.5 million in 3 weeks, and that was nothing to do with MVT.
Yeah, and Larry's not here, but he has endless stories about amazing things that he's done because he did proper observational research first and really understood people and knew what to create, whether it was a small change or feature or a larger rethink or redesign of something, because we really understood users. And so I think the problem is that very often on these experiment teams or innovation teams or disruption teams, UX is just being circumvented. That somebody has an idea, we make a paper prototype and validate it, or we have developers create an engineering build and we rush it out to some percentage of live users, which is fucking risky. And then usually somebody has a shitty metric that's going to make it look like, oh, well, this went well enough. Maybe this is a good idea. But as I've been pointing out to a lot of teams, I think testing is very flawed. We're not just testing, did people make it through? We're not just testing, did they get to the end? We're supposed to be testing if this solved the original goal. If the original goal was a more efficient checkout, I don't want to test for, well, they kind of made it through. Or, people send me results of some of their testing sometimes, and it's like, oh, well, this number we really like went down, but this other number went up. It's like, what? That other number's more important. No, our executives only care about the first number, and that one went down. But the other number went up. Yeah, the executives are only looking at the first number, and I just go, yeah, fuck it. Craig says, you've nailed it. UX is being left out. Yeah, because remember, very often product or somebody just has an idea and they say, look, my idea is great. Now we're in ego and Dunning-Kruger universe, and people go, look, my idea is great and my manifestation of it is great. My execution of it is great. This is the product idea. Just have engineering build this and we'll try it out. That's how we'll know if it's good. And I have to tell people that's not how you do it. And that's also usually not an MVP. I know Nick keeps saying MVT, but that's not even an MVP in some cases. In some cases, people are spending months building out a thing, and it's like, well, that's not an MVP. What was the minimum slice with user value that you could create? And the problem is UX is not being given the chance to provide research, provide insight. UX is usually not allowed to design it, or if they are designing it, they're told to design what's in the idea person's head. So this is always going to be a conflict. This is never going to go well. Craig says, confirmation bias special. Oz says, yep, the situation I'm in, where the engagement metrics look good, but the actual real world experience is awful. Craig says, the number of times I've heard, we saw it on another website, or Bob thought it would be cool, or we just wanted to try it, or they told us to test it. Yeah, I teach teams, you are empowered to say no.
I learned a new on this gig. I learned a new turn of phrase. Maybe you've heard this: watermelon reporting. Heard that before? So green on the outside, but red on the inside. Right? It's basically right. So the point is
Yes.
and there is a lot of this going on because of that accountability stuff that you very rightly mentioned, Deb. Is that people are reporting upwards from middle and senior managements to C-level, kind of inappropriately, spinning it and doing this sorts of engagement like Excel on Fire is saying. They're giving a really good story and cherry picking or confirmation bias, picking the metrics to tell that narrative, but it's not what's going on. And there's a lot of that. It's way above my pay grade, but I'm usually asked to provide the ammunition for that stuff.
Yeah. And Craig, you know that you can work with me personally on this. If there's anything that I've got that can help you with this, obviously I want to help rethink the way companies are doing experimentation, because a lot of this experimentation is not customer centric. It's not user centered. It's, I have an idea and it's as hot as my pants, to quote from Blackadder season 2, for those of you who are fans. It's like the late Rick Mayall said that one. So, we have to get teams out of that mindset of we're some cool startup bro culture thing where I have an idea and I'm just going to unleash it on the public. And I think we have to be smarter than that. So yeah. We're out of time. We're running late, in fact. So now's the time where we tell people where to find us and follow us and all of that. Sophie, where can everyone find you and follow you?
Thanks, Debbie. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Wicked Geeky. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you say hi on LinkedIn, do make a note or just simply follow me. You'll get all my goodies. And it's been a pleasure discussing with you guys tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for coming and
Nick.
staying the whole 2 hours. Nick, what are we going to do? How are we going to follow you if LinkedIn has banned you?
You're
Hold
still on
on.
Twitter, right?
Free Dr. Nick. I don't think I
I'm
have
an
an
outlaw.
appropriate. Yeah, I don't think I have an
Yeah,
appropriate thing for that other than sad rain. I don't know.
We
it's
need to
probably
complain
good.
to LinkedIn because it's not
I,
good.
no, but it's a bit like people who've worked their whole lives to get 1 million subscribers and then get cancelled because someone reported them, right? And then it happens to YouTube, Facebook. It's soul destroying to people who've built communities. We'll see what happens. I'm sure I'll be back, but if not, I'll go somewhere else. So, where can you find me? You can't really. I'm on LinkedIn, but please do hook up with me. I will be back. It's probably nice to give everybody a break from the
I hope you'll
I guess
join the
comedy
Delta
or
CX
drama.
Slack, honestly. I think you'd have some fun there. So, if
Yeah.
people want to join, deltacx.com/links, you can link it up there. Oh, Kayleen
Thanks,
says, I live
everybody.
under a rock. What? Yeah, evidently Dr. Nick's
Watched.
LinkedIn account was shut down
It was
somehow.
banned.
Yeah, hopefully that
I've
will
been
be
somehow
undone soon.
restricted, is the word they've called me. My
Never
account is
look at it.
They
restricted
can't
on
find you.
pending.
Yeah, he's off
Yeah.
the off
He's
the
invisible.
he's
He's
off
off
the
the
map.
grid.
And evidently I'm a text to speech voice and I'm not real. So we're just having a Black Mirror kind of week. And everybody, if you enjoy shows like this, please do subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell that says you want all notifications. And please find 3 friends. I bet you've got at least 3 friends who would be interested in UX content like this. So please share it out to them. Your classmates, your coworkers, your manager, they need to know about Delta CX. Quickly, our next show is going to be tomorrow. We've got a panel of 3 people who are going to talk about how hard it was to find their first job in UX. And so get ready to ask them some questions about what finding a UX job is like. So thanks again to Sophie and Dr. Nick, and I'm sure we'll see you both again soon. And everybody be well. Bye.
Thanks,
Customer
everyone.
centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are